What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Planet podcast. It's been a while, but it's me, your host, Brandon, here, joined by Alex. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. We've been planning this for a long time. Finally happy to see us behind the mics.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but football is back, and so are we. This year, we're expecting it to be another great season. So today, we'll be previewing the entire season, division by division, plus our Super Bowl picks and who we have as the Super Bowl 60 champion. And at the very end, we'll have some bold predictions that you won't want to miss. But of course, let's start with the biggest headlines of the offseason. The Eagles won again. No, I'm just kidding, guys. That's old news. That was last year. I just had to throw it in there. If you know me, I'm the biggest Eagles fan around. So obviously, the Eagles stopped the Chiefs in their quest for a three-peat. But let's move forward to this season because that's in the past. We don't care about that anymore. So obviously, Alex, the biggest headline just happened this past week. Micah Parsons traded to the Green Bay Packers, signs a 4-year, $188 million extension. What are your thoughts on that?
It was honestly head scratching to me to see Jerry Jones being willing to just let Micah be traded away. They traded for George Pickens. They obviously got a wide receiver too, which they were missing extremely last year. And now you trade away one of the best pass rushers in the NFL for two probably late round picks and Kenny Clark, and he's no slouch, but he's a run stopper. He's not really going to add on the pass rush. So I feel like to me it was a head scratcher on that side, and I feel like for the Packers it's them showing that they're willing to try to push the needle. And I got to think my guy Aaron Rodgers is sick to his stomach that the same year they draft a receiver in round one, they make a league breaking trade to get a generational pass rusher. So I love that for them, but I do worry for the Packers, though. I hope that their interior defensive lineman can pick up the slack for Kenny Clark because, people take that for granted, So, yeah.
Yeah, so now we spoke about the past. Obviously, now let's kind of look more to the future aside from Micah. Are there any rookies that you feel like are set up for success this season? Or maybe if not, do you think some are in a terrible position that it won't help them reach their full potential?
Absolutely. I'll share just three of them that I think are poised for early success. First one might be easy to just, say it's an easy pick, but nothing is easy. Like we've seen with Chase Young, a top defensive lineman going to the Commanders. He obviously, is now on his, I believe, second or third team. Or I think his second team. Abdul Carter for the Giants. I think he walks into a situation where he has Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, so he's not expected to just be the sole anchor. He just got to get in there, do his job. He's just a beast. I think his instincts and his natural pass rushing ability is going to go well with this Giants defense. So I love his opportunity to make some noise early. The other one was Boise State legend Ashton Genty. He's going to go into a run-first offense. Pete Carroll's just going to feed him the rock. They've made improvements on the offensive line. I think he's going to get the rock early and often, so look for him to have a big rookie year. Another one, and again, no disrespect to my guy Najee Harris, but Omarion Hampton, I think he's just a specimen in terms of what he can do on the football field, what he did in North Carolina as a lead back. I just feel like with Harbaugh and how he ran offenses in Michigan, I think he's going to kind of keep that going, even with Justin Herbert. So I feel like by midseason, you'll see Hampton kind of go to 1A, 1B with Najee. So I think he's going to get the opportunity to contribute right away. For rookies likely to struggle, I got three for you. One, Shamar Stewart, Cincinnati Bengals. He nearly went back to college, missed all the training camp. That's major for any player, let alone a rookie.
Definitely.
So I feel like he's absolutely going to struggle early on. Colston Loveland missed a bunch of on-field work this offseason due to recovering from the torn labrum surgery. And because they already have a tight end, I'm blanking on his name right now. Cole Kmet. I just feel like Ben Johnson's not going to rush him in there, so I think he's not going to really get the looks that I think a lot of people were expecting early with his draft capital. And then Tyler Shaw, and honestly, if I mispronounce his name, he's not going to be in the league long enough for me to pronounce it correctly. I was already questioning that pick in general with everybody else that was still available. I think the Saints as a team are not built for a quarterback that has issues making decisions under pressure. And I think just everything that comes with being a second round pick for a team like this. I just don't think he has the roster to help nurture him to where he needs to be. I think he's going to end up being a bust.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on your 3 for success. The last 2 on your failures, I don't know. I feel like Colston Loveland, maybe not right away, but I feel like they can easily gradually implement him into the offense. And I don't know. I think he'll be one of the better rookies this year as well on the offensive end. And then for the last one, Shog, sorry, I don't disagree with you on that one. I'm 100% on you with that one. I messed myself up. My bad. But yeah, so I have them as one of my worst teams this year. So yeah. So speaking of that, let's just move on to division by division. Real quick, we can go through who we think will win, maybe a question mark and a bold take. So let's just start off with the AFC East. Me, myself, I have the Bills winning the division. My biggest question mark would be, are the Dolphins really going to ever get back to their offensive powerhouse that they were just a couple years ago? Or will those 2 concussions really play a huge factor, you know? And then my bold take would be the Patriots finish second, just because obviously I have the Bills first. I don't see much coming out of the Jets, let alone the Dolphins this year. What do you think?
Absolutely. I agree with you on the Patriots. I think Drake May's dual threat ability and then Coach Vrabel, I think, is going to reinstill something back into New England that they haven't had for a little bit. And then for my biggest question mark is, can Justin Fields reinvigorate this Jets offense? You know, they have Garrett Wilson, they have Breece Hall, they have a couple other young running backs that, you know, they're getting a lot of buzz this year, but it all comes down to the quarterback. As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I can tell you the quarterback is what's going to make your offense go. And, you know, Justin Fields definitely shows flashes, but this is his chance to really take over a team. And then my bold prediction, piggybacking on what you're saying about the Dolphins and all the buzz around their team, you know, Tyreek Hill wasn't named a captain. I feel like there's been a lot of tension between Mike McDaniels and Tyreek Hill. I think we're going to get, you know, not a AB situation, but AB-esque, where I think Tyreek Hill is in a new uniform by the time the trade deadline hits.
Whoa, okay. Whole new uniform. That's a bold one right there. So moving,
he'll be a Chief. Watch.
He'll be a Chief. Go back home. Go to the Super Bowl maybe one more time. Who knows? We'll get to that. So moving on to the AFC North. Of course, I have Ravens. I don't see anybody stopping them in that division. I'm sorry. I know you're a Steeler fan. So I'm sure you agree with me as well. Yeah. There you go. So and then so my biggest question mark in this one would be, will the Bengals overcome a subpar defense to be able to make the playoffs? Because last year we saw that offense was amazing, lights out, but you can only score so much more than the defense will give up every single week. So we saw that consistently throughout last season. So that's my biggest question mark. And for this, my bold take in the AFC North would be Shedeur Sanders will be the starting quarterback for the Browns by the end of this season.
Love it. I agree. It's the fascinating thing about the Bengals is Hendrickson was a big topic this season. He was holding out. He got paid. But even when he was on the team last season, the defense wasn't anything different or stoppable. Like they weren't stopping anything. So I also am concerned with the Bengals, because when you play an offense where you got to score a lot of points, you don't really give yourself a lot of room for error. So definitely concerned about the Bengals. My bold prediction is Dylan Sampson for the Browns will lead the team in rushing by season's end. I think the contract situation and the off-field legal issues with Judkins are going to come into play there. And I think Ford has shown what he is capable of. And I think Sampson gets the opportunity to be a bell cow of sorts.
He's shown what he's capable of, not being the starter. Moving on to the AFC South, I have the Texans winning it, and then one of my biggest question marks right here is I don't really see a team, maybe aside from the Texans, that are really strong. So could this be the division where a losing record gets you the division, like how we saw with the NFC East a couple years ago when the Commanders won? What about you?
I agree. You know, I think last season, entering last season, CJ Stroud, everybody was pegging him for 5,000 yards to go off. It didn't happen. They struggled. So, you know, this season's going to be major for, you know, people's perception of Stroud and also, you know, how he does in his career. My biggest question mark is, you know, with the Colts, can Daniel Jones prove that he should be the starter? I know a lot of people were really upset Richardson wasn't named the starter, did have shoulder issues, so I think that partly played into it. But I'm absolutely out on the Colts. I've never been a Danny Dimes guy. Maybe I was for a second, but totally over. My bold prediction is rookie tight end Tyler Warren leads the Colts in receptions. I think he's going to be a focal point for that offense.
Okay. So then moving on to the AFC West, of course, I'm sure you got the Raiders winning it as well.
No, 100%.
I just messed with it. Of course, we got the Chiefs winning that division. And then my biggest question mark, will Bo Nix build off a great season, rookie season, or will he suffer from the sophomore slump? But I don't, I don't want to say he will, but you just never know, because we kind of saw that with CJ Stroud, where he had an amazing rookie season. And like how you just said, everybody was pegging him for 5,000 yards, and then he just completely fell off. And then my bold take will be that 3 teams make the playoffs this season from the AFC West. What about you?
Love it. My biggest question was also Bo Nix. I think when you're a rookie in the league, people don't really know what your tendencies are after a full year's tape or a couple games tape in the first year. That's normally when defenses lock in on you and they start to kind of force you to do things you're not used to. So absolutely, I'm concerned about Bo Nix and the Broncos. My bold prediction, and this is on some like fairy tale last dance stuff, Travis Kelce ends his last dance with 10 plus touchdowns.
Oh, so he's not going to keep playing? He's just going to go off and become a billionaire with Taylor Swift? Must be nice.
Exactly. I would stop risking my body if I was about to become a billionaire too.
So moving on, NFC East, of course, Philly fan right here. I'm going to go with the Eagles, not being super biased, but just because the team is coming off a Super Bowl, obviously. So I'm still riding with the Eagles to win the division. And then right here, it's kind of my biggest question is, will Jayden Daniels and the Commanders be much better, or will they also suffer from kind of a sophomore slump where Jayden Daniels is kind of figured out? But I don't see it as much as I'm an Eagle fan. I love Jayden Daniels as a player. He's a great young quarterback. So I don't hate the man at all. So that's kind of my thing to look out for. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jayden Daniels had, a hell of a rookie year, definitely turn heads. But then again, defenses now have all this tape on you. They have all the game plans. So it's up to him to really, show it up in his second year. I mean, the biggest question for me is, will the Cowboys defense be able to do anything without Micah? I know the Cowboys defense wasn't a strong unit last year, but when you don't have pass rush and those corners got to run all day, you're asking for trouble. So I'm concerned about that. Bold prediction for me is Jackson Dart starts for the Giants in the last 4 games of the year. And in those 4 games, he does kind of like what Bo Nix did, where he shows like the promise and the potential of what he can ultimately do for that team.
And then so moving on to the NFC North, I have the Lions winning it again. And then my biggest question mark is, will Caleb Williams and company take a big leap under Ben Johnson now? Obviously, he's coming over from Detroit. He was the offensive coordinator over there. I personally think that he will be able to take Caleb Williams to that next level that many expect him, as he was the number 1 pick last year. So what do you think?
I'll just go to bold prediction first, because mine is Ben Johnson does take Caleb Williams to his full potential. Okay. I think, I mean, what we saw with Jared Goff in that Lions offense, I'm excited to see what he does with the young Bears team. I mean, they got a bevy of receivers, which you couldn't have said 4 years ago about the Bears.
Yeah, exactly.
And then my biggest question mark is Micah enough to push Packers over the hump. I think they're going to be under the microscope. Any early struggles, they're just going to get scrutinized. Like I said, Kenny Clark is a big run stuffer. It's up to the other interior linemen to, step up and kind of hold that position down. I love the trade for the Packers. They obviously win the trade, but, I'm concerned if that's enough to push them over the hump.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So moving on to NFC South, I got the Bucs winning it again. And my biggest question mark right here is, will Michael Penix Jr. show he's the future for Atlanta, or will they have to return to Kirk Cousins later in the season if he struggles? And then for my full prediction on here, I have the Saints finishing with a 2-15 record. They'll be the worst team in the league this year, and they'll have to go for the number 1 pick. I know this past weekend, Arch Manning wasn't the best, so we'll see. That's a discussion for another day. But that's in my head, I have them going after the quarterback because they'll realize that, damn, the quarterback they took this year ain't it. If he can't beat out Spencer Rattler for the starting job.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's a bad look already. My biggest question was the same. Michael Penix, he got his, got a couple starts at the end of the year, showed some flashes, showed some, some concerns, but that's just normal when you're getting used to the speed of the game.
Yeah.
I'm also really interested in seeing if Penix can kind of get Kyle Pitts going, because I feel like everyone's been saying this year's his year for the last 3-4 years, and I think, can Penix really get everyone involved? Because Drake London got peppered. Now it's, can he, facilitate the offense through more than just one person? My bold prediction is we will see that Saints absolutely wasted their pick on Shaw. I think, like I said, I was very surprised at the pick. I think the entire fan base, even people that are super casual, probably had no idea who he was. So yeah, I just think Saints just absolutely just keep on missing. Sorry, Denny.
They messed out on Shedeur twice, and then they're going to mess up again. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, and moving on to the NFC West. Last but not least, I have the Rams winning the division. My biggest question mark is, will CMC help the Niners get back into playoff contention? And my biggest bold take on this one would be everyone finishes 9-8 or better. Like, I truly see this being a division with, for sure, 2 playoff teams. Could there be a third? We'll have to wait and see. What about you?
Gotcha. My biggest question mark is, can Matthew Stafford play the full season? He suffered a lot of injuries, especially with the Rams, and even more with the Lions. So he's been in the league for quite a while. The back is a very dangerous place, especially once you get hit. Like, I'm worried about that. So I'm concerned for the Rams because if he's hurt, I just don't think the Rams can compete. Bold prediction for me, Marvin Harrison Jr., highly touted entering last year, had a very disappointing season for his standards, not for a rookie, if you're judging a rookie by who he is, but who he was, went to Ohio State. I like to see him bounce back this year. I liked his red zone usage, so I see him scoring 8+ touchdowns and really showing what he teased us at Ohio State with.
Well, a couple of my fantasy teams are hoping that as well, so I'm hope you're right on that one. So moving on, we'll think of a couple breakout players, maybe some busts, and maybe a comeback player. So for my breakout star, I couldn't decide on one or the other, so I'll just give you both real quick. I have Jackson Smith and Jigba. Obviously last year, we saw him pretty much become the wide receiver 1 while they still had DK, while they still had Tyler Lockett. So now this year, now that he is the main number 1, obviously Cooper Kupp is there, but they kind of play the same type of receiver routes. So now that he's the main number 1, can we see him even take another step forward, And then I guess my 1B would be Drake May. Now he has a better supporting cast, better culture with Coach Vrabel around now. Will that help him also take the next step? Those are my 1A and 1B. What do you think?
For my breakout star, Drake London had a great year last year, but I think he's going to surpass even the highest expectations. We saw in the end of the season, Michael Penix definitely peppered him, looked for him early and often. He's a big red zone threat. I like him to go over 1,400 yards, 10+ touchdowns, and really solidify himself as a top receiving threat this year.
Okay. And who do you have as your bust? Because I'll get to mine right now. Who do you have as yours?
My potential bust is Bryce Young for the Panthers. He kind of had a redemption arc last season. He got benched, came back, performed better. I just think in terms of a roster construction, they're just not doing him any favors. They traded away Adam Thielen, and then Coker is now on the IR for the first 4 weeks of the season, and now Hunter Renfrow is the number 2 wide receiver. And I think he'll be good, but I also think, not playing for a couple years is definitely going to add some rust to your skill set. So I just think Bryce Young's just not going to be able to build off of what he showed glimmers of last season.
Yeah, I'm going to not piggyback off Bryce Young, but I have another young QB as well. My potential bust of this year is J.J. McCarthy. I don't know about you, but me personally, I was just never super high on him. I felt like he was kind of more of a system quarterback, where at Michigan they were more run heavy, this and that. So you never really had to do anything flashy with him. Sure, every now and then hit the check down, hit the easy guy that's wide open, but they never really had the offense around him at Michigan. So even now coming in as a top 10 pick last season, obviously missing the whole season, Sam Darnold, who had no expectations at all, I would say, left a really high bar for him. So now you're coming in as the top 10 pick quarterback. You have to be just as good. I don't expect you to win the division because obviously the Lions are there, but I do expect you to be at least second and make the playoffs because Sam Darnold had them vying for the number one overall seed in the NFC East or NFC, sorry. So you should be there around that. What do you think?
I actually like JJ McCarthy this year. I
Okay.
know in Michigan he had very minimal usage. I think Harbaugh just like I was, sharing before. I think it was. I definitely think he was a system quarterback, but I think he was just being a team player and doing what he needed to do. Obviously, he didn't air it out in the college football playoff, but obviously he didn't need to. I mean, he has a strong arm. He's athletic. He has good footwork in the pocket. I think, he has a good supporting cast. You got Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. You have Jordan Addison, who I don't know, is he suspended or hurt? Can't remember off the top of my head right now.
He's suspended, yeah.
He's suspended. So you're missing him, but you got Aaron Jones, you got Jordan Mason, who looks to be like that hard nose in between the tackles running back. So I feel like with the supporting cast he has, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with JJ McCarthy this year.
Okay. And then moving on to our comeback player of the year, I personally have CMC. I think he'll reclaim his all-pro form from obviously a couple seasons ago. Last year he was out, injury riddled. You could say Madden curse, whatever you want. But I think CMC should be able to come back and help the Niners get into the playoffs. Who do you have as your comeback player of the year?
For me, it's Nick Chubb. He is just a freak of nature, kind of like Derrick Henry, where their work ethic is insane. You wouldn't believe what they do for their regular routine and how they take care of their bodies. He has the opportunity to start for the first 4 weeks since Joe Mixon has that nagging foot injury. So I feel like he's going to have an opportunity to obviously get the bell cow carries first couple weeks, and then once Joe Mixon comes back, I think it'll be integrated into a 1-2 punch.
Let's move on to our award predictions and lastly Super Bowl predictions. So for me, I have MVP Joe Burrow. Obviously, I think he should have been able to win it last year, but obviously you can't win it when you're not in the playoffs. So I feel like now this year he'll come back just as good, maybe even better. And it'll just ride on. Will the defense be enough to help him get into the playoffs? So I have Joe Burrow. What about you?
Mine is the answer that I'm sure a lot of people are throwing their money on. It's Patrick Mahomes. I think last year we saw them struggle throughout the year. They definitely didn't look like the Chiefs of old. I think Andy Reid and Mahomes and the entire staff are in the lab this season figuring out ways to, create mismatches. And obviously they're not going to, go over the top until the trade deadline when they get Tyreek Hill back. But I think, what we saw from Worthy and some of these young guys that they have that are, fringe players, but I think they have a lot that can I think Patrick Mahomes can maximize this team, and I think there's no better storyline for Netflix and all those documentaries that they're trying to do for Mahomes to get an MVP with Kelsey scoring some touchdowns. So I'm going with the storyline for that.
Okay. And now moving on to Offensive Player of the Year. Obviously, my boy Saquon won it last year. This year, I have the running back that I was hoping the Eagles would have gotten, but it's okay because we ended up Saquon later on. But Bijan Robinson, I think he's just so good, and I think he'll even get even better and take the next step forward this year to really solidify himself as the top back, aside from Saquon. So who do you have winning Offensive Player of the Year?
I have Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, when David Montgomery went down, he got full workload, and he's a threat in through the air, and he's a threat on the ground. I think I'm actually a little concerned about Montgomery. He opted out of surgery to do physical therapy, and I think statistically it does show that you tend to have a drop in performance in the following years because you didn't immediately repair the ligament. So I feel like Gibbs is going to get a lot of opportunity, and even if he doesn't, I think he's kind of like those players that once they get the ball in their hands, you give them space, they're a threat to take it in all the way. So I like Gibbs to build off last year.
Okay, and moving on to Defensive Player of the Year. I know you touched on him earlier, but my Defensive Player of the Year
is Micah Parsons. Just me personally, I feel like you went through all of this offseason turmoil with the Cowboys. You got the trade to another team. You got the extension that you were looking for. Now it's time to prove it. Like, so it's all set in stone for him. Not saying it's going to be easy, but that should be like, okay, guys, look, I got my money, got my team. This year I'm going to show you that I am the best defensive player.
Okay. Call it a homer pick. I call it the right pick. I'm going with TJ Watt. Obviously, you and I differ on Steelers' success and failure this year, but I feel like when exactly, I feel like when you're more competitive in games and you're not just fighting the team from running out the clock, you get a lot more opportunities for pass rushing. Harmon, who I know a lot of people were not high on for the Steelers, I think you do need that interior defensive lineman, like I was talking about Kenny Clark. So I feel like that's an important piece there, and I know he's out for week 1, unfortunately, but I just think that with a competent offense, you keep your defense off the field, keep them fresh, and I just like TJ Watt here to take advantage of a competent offense.
Okay. And moving on to Coach of the Year, I have Mike Vrabel of the Patriots. Obviously, I kind of touched on him earlier with the Drake May. I just feel like, obviously, he came back to the Patriots. He knows the Patriot way. Last season wasn't the best under Mayo, so I feel like he'll be able to come back, instill the Patriot way to them, and maybe potentially get them to the 7th seed or something like that. So what do you think?
I agree. I just think with what Drake May showed this past year, they have potential there with Trayvon Henderson kind of coming in there and getting those carries with Ramondre. I think that this team is slowly building itself, and Vrabel is taking the opportunity. He's at the right place at the right time, and I like to see the new age Patriots under Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, and then so last but not least, our Super Bowl predictions. You guys can say I'm biased or not, but give me part 3. Eagles versus the Chiefs. Obviously, Eagles should have won the first one. It wasn't a hold. We came back last year. They freaking dominated. The real score was 40-6. I don't care what anybody says. Obviously, they were scoring on our backups in the Super Bowl to make it for a little more competitive score. But everybody knows that the true score was 40-6. I just think we get round 3. NFL is going to want to give us the Swift Kelsey wedding at halftime, but it's not going to matter because it'll be another Eagles blowout. Eagles repeat as Super Bowl champions next year.
Just like Thanos says, to an extent, this is inevitable. I'm with you on the same thing. I think the Chiefs are one of those teams. They're like the Patriots. You just can never count them out. You really got to get through them. You got to be the better team against them at the right time. The Eagles are just the new form of consistency in the NFL. Like, they're always retooling. They're always figuring out new ways to take players that weren't doing well in a different system, bring them into theirs and acclimate. So I just think that until someone else like the Bills or the Ravens or the Steelers can come out and really show that they can overtop, the Chiefs, I just think that the Super Bowl runs through Philadelphia and through Kansas City until further notice. It's just, you can't ignore that.
Yep. All right. Before we take off real quick, just who's going to ask you, I know we gave bold predictions earlier, but give me one more bold prediction that you just coming into the season, maybe it's a team finishing last or a playoff team that made the playoffs last year but didn't this year. What do you think?
I think the Miami Dolphins are going to implode this season. I think Mike McDaniel is going to be the first coach fired. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be in a new uniform by the trade deadline. And I have them finishing dead last in the division. I just think there's too much there going against them. Too much needs to go right for them to even be above 500. So I'm just overall concerned for that team. And if they can surprise me, I credit Mike McDaniels. And if they don't, I just think he lost the locker room. Just the dialogue over Tyreek Hill not being a captain is just kind of like giving me more of a feel of what may be going on in that locker room.
Yeah. For me personally, like, my bold prediction would be the Steelers made the playoffs last year. I personally don't think they'll make it this year. I know the running joke is they'll finish 9-8 every year in wild card exit. I feel like this is the first year that they don't finish 9-8. it'll be 8-9 or worse. And for me personally, it's because of Rodgers. We've seen it. I feel like we've seen the decline happening. I just don't think he's much of an upgrade. I feel like they messed up last year when they had Justin Fields performing pretty. Obviously, he wasn't the greatest, but I thought he was doing well enough for them. He had a winning record for you guys, and then you guys had to throw in Russell Wilson. So I was like, ever since then, I was all like, I just feel like it's even more downgrade with Rodgers now. I know you don't like it, but that's for me. That's my bold prediction.
I totally could see it. But I mean, the fact that the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf, such a rare move for the Steelers to make a trade like that. So that to me was, obviously like a major. And then you have Rodgers paired up with him. And I know Rodgers is now 2 years removed from the Achilles. I'm hoping, because he is older, that he still has some of that mobility to move around the pocket and just chuck it deep. Defensively, I'm not worried. I'm just, my concerns. Listen, we could have a side bet on the side about where this goes, but I do think Aaron Rodgers will find a way to uplift Roman Wilson, uplift Calvin Austin, use Freiermuth and Washington in the end zone. We know he loves his tight ends, Jermichael Finley, all these guys that he made touchdown targets in his career. Yeah. I know I'm asking for a lot, but I feel like if he came back to play this season, it's because he feels like he can still compete. So I'm gonna roll with that, and I definitely think the Steelers win 10+ games this year. I know it's bold.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, that's all we have for today. Just what you guys can expect coming up this season. Alex and I will be dropping weekly videos every Wednesday. We'll be recapping the previous week, going into some segments, and then previewing the following week. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on social media. You can see it right there at _Brandon Zamora and _Alex Valadez. And then make sure to follow us at Sports Planet Pod. So thank you for tuning in, and catch us next week, dropping every Wednesday for another episode of the Sports Planet Podcast.